the fence post I was doing. Then he wanted to get swung around. Well, we listened to Hooked on a Feeling. You know, I love them so much. I love them and I want their future to be so good that I'm willing to do whatever it takes and say whatever it takes and be ridiculed and all this stuff. And we'll get to Louis C.K. in a second, because the reaction to him going against PC norms has been hilarious to me. That's like someone in 1948 being like, guys, did you hear that Frank is finally ready to condemn the Weimar Republic? That's awesome. What a hero. Meanwhile, 60 million are dead and it's ashes. If you're a comic in 2019 and you have not addressed PC problems, like the fact that there's censorship and you're not allowed to mock anybody but white males, you've already sold. You're like, how do you come back from that? I'm glad he's doing that, but it's like, it's not an act of bravery. He got caught masturbating in front of a bunch of women. Now that the dust is settled, and I compare it to the degeneracy that's happening nonstop and without any justice in Hollywood, it's pretty low on the evil totem pole. I think he just has a desire to feel humiliated. He wants people to watch him masturbate, and he wants to feel shame, which is a lot. It's weird and perverse and self-hating and odd, but it isn't like the violent rape of children. But so he lost a lot of his social standing, and then because of that, he probably felt comfortable to, you know, do some jokes that he wouldn't have before. So that, you know, and now people are turning on him and stuff. It's hilarious. I just saw this. Where is it? Yeah. This is from The Hill. Louis C.K. mocks Parkland survivors in leaks stand-up set. And the blue checkmarks swarm, and everybody's going after him, and they're calling him alt-right, Nazi, bigot, racist, homophobe. It's like, none of that shit even means anything. Those are all psyop. I mean, so many people won't even believe the reality of what all this stuff is, that it's worth trying to explain it to people, but that's a psychological operation, guys. It's by design, and it's like, if people don't see it by now, it's insane. So then even people were saying that they're like, you can tell how far Louis C.K. has fallen because he's now stealing Owen Benjamin's act. Okay, he's not stealing my act. He mocked a topic. He did what comedians are supposed to do, which is to mock the absurdity of life, and the halo around David Hogg and the protection that the media and Hollywood and everybody gave him, and the corporations. I'll get to why corporations are so insane now. I realized immediately that he was the guy you got to go after, you know, and no one else was. And so I got kicked off Twitter for it. I got called a child pervert because I said, if David Hogg he hasn't grown pubes yet, so he can't tell grown men not to own guns, and they twisted that into making, we all saw that, right? None of them did any of that. So now these topics are so taboo that they're saying that like Louis C.K. stole my act when our jokes aren't even close to similar. It's because that topic is not allowed to be mocked. David Hogg has a 1200 SAT, which is pretty low, and he got into Harvard. He's a protected made man. And like Box Day was talking about that on the stream today about made men, you know, like and I saw it all the time in Hollywood. And when you call it out, people call you haters and you're envious. It's like, no, they're people that are chosen because they know they can be controlled, and they know that they can serve a narrative, and they are promoted and promoted and promoted and promoted until they have fame. I watched it happen to Amy Schumer. I mean, that came out of nowhere, guys. And she was never, I remember like, we were we were booked to do a New Year's together, like to co-headline, and she'd been doing stand-up for 1 year. And she bailed. She was like, "Nah, I'm not gonna do that." And I remember it dawned on me. I was like, "Amy, we can make $2,000. Like when you've done stand-up for a year and you're offered $2,000, that's mind-blowing." And to me, the concept of turning that down, not for another gig, but just for no reason, it meant you didn't love comedy and you didn't need money. And people that are in that position, I have no idea why they would do comedy because it's so hard. You get paid nothing for thousands of sets. And then when you finally, if you're 1 in 10,000 that gets recognition and you start building an audience, which is almost impossible unless you're given an audience by people with power. It's like, at that moment, I realized that she was in a different group than me. And you find out she's a blood relative of Chuck Schumer, the America sabotaging senator from New York. And you see her doing stadiums and no one finds her funny and she's just getting Netflix specials and book deals. And then if you criticize her, they're like, well, you're a hater because you're envious because you're doing clubs for $2,000 and Amy Schumer's getting paid $1 million to do a stadium. And that's why you're criticizing the fact that her jokes are terrible. And politically, she's trying to create war, like an undeniable situation of economic collapse in the country that you're raising children in. This is by design. And that's why I focus and fascinate on wizardry and try and teach people how to spot it and stuff, because the amount of control people have is unreal. So like in my life, I've tried to, and here's another thing about Louis C.K. He's now not made anymore. And so now you're going to watch a redheaded leftist Jew being called a Nazi and a bigot and a homophobe and a transphobe and a child hater. And it's going to be hilarious. But he didn't wake up. He's like 55. He's like a very rich, bad father, bad husband, left his kids, called his daughters cunts on stage. I'm not rooting for the guy. He's a great joke writer. But it's like by now, if now is the first time you've addressed any sacred cows in stand-up, like it's tough for me to have any respect for you. It's like, where were you this whole time? Where were you when people were getting massacred like me or other people, their lives humiliated, shamed? People took my ability to make money to feed my kids, literally. And these people didn't do anything. And they're supposed to be in the profession of truth telling truth to power, being funny. Like that's what a comedian does. So I don't give a shit about Louis C.K. at all. And yeah, he'll do good jokes and whatever, but that ship has sailed, man. It's like, when did Parkland happen? Was that this month? He called Donald Trump Adolf Hitler. Like the new elected leader of Brazil is allowing Brazilians to have guns again. And so people are calling him fascist and Hitler. Do you want to know what fascists and Hitler do? They take guns. Every single dictator in the history of the world disarms the population. They don't give guns to the people. If they're truly in the force power business, like if they truly are like Hitler or Mao or Pol Pot or Stalin, those guys take the guns, and then eventually, like in Cambodia, they killed everybody with glasses. You know why they did that? Because they wanted to take out smart people, because smart people hate communism. Because dumb people with no skills are the ones that benefit the most from communism and from dictatorships, because Without that, if you live in a free world, if you live in a world based on merit and based on effort and based on community and based on having morality, building your community, your nation, your family, you're going to get inequality, and that's good. Like, inequality is what motivates. Like, the fact that I have friends that can make fences and I can't is the reason I've been working on it today all day, because the inequality annoys me. And I'm like, it motivates me. If I'd never met someone like Amy's grandfather, Jack, who can just fix anything, I wouldn't have known that inequality existed and that I should try to do better, But if you're like a dumb person and a resentful person and an evil person and a lazy person and someone who can't, that the opposite sex is not attracted to you because of your awful character and your just neglected body and your lack of resources and your infidelity, the best possible scenario for you is a dictator takes all the money from the people with all the money, like takes all the freedom from the people actually making something, and they're attractive to people and they're having prosperous lives. They take those people, they kill them, they put them in shallow graves. They take all their resources and everybody is now at your level. Now, if the world is a broken prison like North Korea, being smart and being driven and being innovative is not an advantage whatsoever. So now the lowest group of people will benefit the most. And that is what people are rooting for now, even corporations. So now I'm having a real issue with a lot of these corporations. And people say, well, Big Bear, you're a capitalist. How can you criticize corporations? And as a tree guy, as an arborist, my brother's like one of the best I've ever seen. I'm mostly a grounds guy, mostly a labor guy. I have balls, but I don't have, I don't climb. When you see a tree like next to an immovable object, like a giant boulder or a rock, or like like a really strong fence, or even like a wire, even like some of the weirdest stuff, or a tree has been like hit by lightning or something, or you will see it grow around and twist and contort in ways that are fascinating. A tree will grow around a wire. And then the wire will be like right through a tree. It'll take a long time, but like a tree will grow completely sideways. If there's a boulder, it'll do anything to get to the sun. And so then you'd see this twisted, contorted tree, and you'd say, wow, that must be the most efficient way to be a tree. No, that's only the most efficient way to be a tree if there's an unmovable force acting upon that tree. And so now it's a weaker tree. It's contorted. It's twisted. It's not. It's more prone to failure, more prone to disease, more prone to everything. But it survived, right? So when you have the welfare state in America, that 80% of the wealth comes from one demographic, heterosexual white males, is responsible for 80% of all the money that the government brings in. And then other groups of people receive tons of free money. Tons of straight white males receive free money, by the way. I'm not talking about that. I'm not saying that being a straight white male means you're a producer. And these are all like, that's why I brought up IQ recently. It's like, I realize there are people that can't understand these simple concepts. And so they will look at me and say, oh, well, you're a racist, bigot, homophobe. And it's like, they'll never get that. Like, they'll never get that simple, logical thing where it's like, no, there's plenty of straight white males that are leeches on society and they've contributed nothing. And of course, being a straight white male does not give you anything. Being a 19-year-old inner city Detroit black male from a single mother does not make you a criminal at all. But when you have to look at problems and solutions and what the world is. You have to look at the big picture, because that is what moves mountains and boulders and everything. You know, it's like a river is tons and tons and tons of raindrops. And you can analyze all the raindrops, but to get a river, to get a force that moves land, you have to look at the average behavior of populations, because that's what the enemy does. That's why people are trying to flood America with populations that have low IQs, because those people are not 7 times, over 70% of them will immediately vote for bigger government, gun control, everything, like everything that the expanding blob called the federal government that is now spending our way into a war. Everything they want comes from people with low IQs, because those people don't want to compete in anything. They just want someone else to rob from them. They want someone else to kill their pig, but they want to eat the pork. That's why I killed the pig, because I don't want to, I want to have to share the burden of slaughter. Slaughter takes a toll on you. And so